King in my club and listen to the dub. But boys, one shout, I'm slowly getting loud. I'm more than just a toy. Listen to me, boy. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance. I can dance. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance with all your eyes on me. Look into my eyes, tell me no more lies. You like what you see, do not stare at me. Please control your drive, cause it's my own life. Once I had fun, but now I want to run. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance. I can dance. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance. rocking in my club and listen to the dub. But boys, watch out, I'm slowly getting out. I'm more than just a toy. Listen to me, boy. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can dance with all your eyes on me. I can
I think we should make them remember. I think we should make them remember. When I first came here, he said, Breadtube this, Breadtube that. We're here to destroy Breadtube. Where is Breadtube at? Where they at now? Where is Breadtube? Where is Breadtube? I walked through Breadtube. I conquered Breadtube. I destroyed Breadtube. And I crushed it in my grip. Infrared has conquered Breadtube officially. They're all dead streamers. They're done. They have no future. They're not growing. They're not in the spotlight anymore. They're turning into outright as-of Nazis. Dead in the goddamn water. There's no such thing as Breadtube anymore. We never took credit for conquering them. Well, we did. We're out facing new enemies like that fucking Paul Moron dumbass, these fake tankies and the Gonzaloites and other fake MLs. But guess what? Breadtube is done. All that remains is Hakim. 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 I want to be clear about something. Breadtube is dead. I crushed Breadtube. I almost single-handedly destroyed Breadtube. Now, you may want to ask me, you want to say, Haas, how did you destroy Breadtube? How did you do it? I came onto the scene and I proved the impossible. I proved that it's possible to be like this and be an actual communist with a capital C. So all that shit they were hijacking from us, all that Marxism they were pretending to represent, all that communism and shit they were pretending to represent, I put them in their place. And I showed them, hey, I'm a real Marxist. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I'm angry and aggressive about it. So they all bitched out and backed down. And we don't hear anything from them anymore. You want to know what an example of this is, guys? You know that fat fuck pig Pogan? You know that guy Pogan? Pogan is turning into like an ML now. Pogan released a fucking video just recently where he was like, actually, Pat socks aren't MLs and he's kind of turning based. He was like, Stalin purged his army in 1941 and it was because it was infiltrated by Nazis, which was true. And I'm like, Jesus, is Pogan turning based? He's like actually recognizing the truth about the Stalinist purges now because they were infiltrated by Nazis. But he was trying to use that as an example of like how we're infiltrating communism and we're actually Nazis. So whatever, it's a dumbass point about us, but but it's gotten him to the point where even Pogan is defending Stalin now. And I consider that an achievement. I consider that a W, which I'm going to fucking take credit for. I'm going to take credit for that W. I mean, yeah, you can go ahead and attack us, but if we start making Stalin mainstream, I'm cool with that. Keep attacking us, bitch. I don't give a fuck. I care more about Stalin than I care about Haas. If Haas's image has to fall so Stalin's image can rise back up, I'll gladly take that sacrifice. I don't give a fuck. Stalin's purges were because of infiltration from fucking Nazis. Yes, that is a historical fact. It's time to clear the record. And nobody talks about, I'm going to have Grover Furr on soon. I actually checked through my emails today because I was like, I should email Grover Furr. I wonder if and I was like, wait a second. I think I did. There's hair in my fucking throat. There was a big, long-ass strand of hair in my fucking throat. So anyway, no, I was thinking that, Pogan, we're gonna react to his video, but I was thinking, no, I was talking about the email. I was thinking I want to email Grover Furr and have him on, but then I realized, you know what? I have actually I've actually emailed Grover Furr before. Or he emailed me, and I was like, I'm pretty sure. So I went into my email and I searched Grover Furr. Lo and behold, I am not shitting you. You will not believe this. Grover Furr reached out to me last August, and I did respond, and it was like August 25th. And I think the reason I didn't, he was like, yeah, I'd love to come on. Let's schedule something.
David Lame here.
Thank you for the
Join
10.
me as I mumble about how capitalist realism has defeated me in Breadtube.
Yeah, so he was like, yeah, schedule something. Like, yeah, I'll get back to you when I schedule something or whatever. And he was like, yeah, get back to me. And I didn't respond. And it was like August 25th. And I think the reason I didn't and I got swamped was because I specifically, late August is when I started taking off, started going on those Royales. I forgot about everything. Oh my God, there was so much shit I forgot about. So I'm going to actually respond to the email today or tomorrow. And I'm gonna see if I can actually have him on, and I'll see if he can forgive me for kind of ghosting him on accident. Holy fuck, Tereshi.
The Khan will rise against all odds, son, gorilla, son.
Thank you, Tereshi. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I'm gonna get back to Mr. Furr, and I want to tell you guys about Grover Furr because he is sincerely an underrated historian. So Grover Furr is this extremely maligned historian he's not ideological, he's completely unbiased. He presents a detailed analysis of first primary sources and facts to clear Stalin's name. Because, all these people make shit up about Stalin. Timothy Snyder, and who's that fucking Simon Teabag, Ballsack, Monta Pussy, whatever the fuck that Montefiore, Stalin in the court of the Red Tsar, Stalin ate thousands of babies. Nah, Grover Furr said, you know what, bitch? Grover Furr, he went, you know what, bitch? I'm going to the archives. I'm going to the primary sources. We're going to get down to business, and we're going to see if you're lying. And what was the verdict that Furr came to? They were lying. They were all liars. Kotkin isn't horrible when it comes to this, but by far the best historian about the history of the Soviet Union under Stalin is Grover Furr, and he's super underrated, and I am going to use my platform to promote Grover Furr and his books in the best way that I can, because I am seriously sickened by the way they try to lie about Stalin, right? Yeah, Lasudra was good too, but Grover Furr, see, he's using the empirical method. He actually proves that Based on even a basic Anglo-Saxon scientific method, these people are a bunch of fucking liars. Okay? Lasudro's cool, but I think he was coming more from like a narrative perspective, more moral perspective. Give me a second. Give me a second. You know, there's another thing too. This is a little spicy. This is a little spicy. I want someone to study the history of Cambodia. I want someone to study what happened under the Khmer Rouge. Because what can we trust? What can we really trust, right? I want someone to just study it. You know, I want there to be someone who can study it in the same way that the revisionist school of Soviet history studied the Soviet Union. Because I don't, you know, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't think we know a lot about what happened with the Khmer Rouge. I know you guys like to meme and shit, but I don't think it's very clear. I don't think it's very clear at all.
Hogan debated Vosh on his pro-NATO position, but it was long and really circular.
Thank you, Max. I don't think it's very clear. The Khmer Rouge were backed by the US. Not true. That's bullshit. It is not clear at all. And I'm not jumping to a conclusion. I'm just saying it should be studied. It should genuinely be studied. I think it's pretty clear there was a lot of horrors and excesses that happened. But to what extent did they happen? I mean, look, guys, I've looked into it. I've looked into what happened in Cambodia, and did you know the US bombed Cambodia more than like any country ever on earth? Do you know how many people the US killed in Cambodia that were later attributed to the Khmer Rouge? I don't know. I wonder. Really makes you wonder. Really makes you wonder. But the US, I mean, oh my God, they really, really bombed the shit out of Cambodia. Like really badly, right? I just wanted to say you are cringe and a fucking liar. You're flip-flopping from native rights, then just go back. Who's this dipshit? Who's this fucking dipshit in my chat that's bitching and whining? Did someone ban him? I can't see his fucking comment. I can't see his comment. I can't see his comment. Okay, his comment's gone. I can't see it. Somebody give me that comment. I'm gonna go look on the live chat. I just wanted to say that. Can you guys find me what that comment was? I just wanted to say that you were cringe. Did someone time him out or something? What the fuck happened? The comment's gone. Just want to say you are cringe and a fucking lie. You're flip-flopping from native rights and then anti-colonial Angloidism and then go back to it as a great example of peak tanky smoke screens. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? My position has not changed on anything. My position hasn't changed. Though I did notice some weird activity. There's been like some weird shit. And I'm not a drama streamer, but I'm gonna give some attention to the drama. And because, you know, this is just like a little weird to me. So let me go ahead and do this. So Ewoks is trying to like pander to the Paul Morin people now, I guess. I don't know. But I was sent some weird shit, and this is what I saw, right? So I saw some shit. And it was like, yeah, he's like, land back is conflated by some pat socks with utopian and maximalist approaches, mainly pushed by Walt ultra-leftist or neoliberal co-opting. But there is a real movement for indigenous sovereignty that is a key piece in undermining the Anglo-American empire. Okay, so far I don't really find that objectionable. I don't really deny that there's a real movement for indigenous sovereignty. I don't really think I deny that. I just reject the astroturfed, Amazon-funded slogan, land back, which is a scheme to privatize public land. So far, so far I don't really find that objectionable, right? Except, and this is where I was like, okay, why the fuck?
Can you talk about the K10 forest incident?
Oh, the Katyn forest incident. That's an interesting way of looking at it. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on YouTube, but there's like two responses I have to the Katyn thing, right? On the one hand, if the Soviets did it, I can't even say it, right? But it doesn't, I mean, but first of all, can you please check the bullets that were found at the site of the Katyn events? Can you check what guns and which country manufactures the guns that those bullets fit in? But moreover, I mean, the evidence is overwhelming about who committed that massacre. Just read Grover Fur, right? But what specifically interests me is that even if it was committed by the Soviets, even if it was, the Katyn victims, to the extent of my knowledge, were overwhelmingly the ruling class, the officers, the like state apparatus leaders and the elites and the bureaucrats and, you know, the kind of military, whatever. So I'm not saying anything. All death is tragic. Anyway, I don't know how we got side railed into that. Yeah, like aristocrats and shit like that. I don't know how we got sidetracked into that, but so this paragraph isn't particular. I don't really agree. I don't like this label land back, but whatever. There's a real move for indigenous sovereignty. Okay, sure. But then what the fuck is this? Settlers, the mythology of the white streamers. Wait, what? This is Jackson. This is like one of my biggest allies, if not my biggest ally. This is an attack on Jackson is an attack on me, right? So what the fuck is this shit? Why is he attacking Jackson? It's almost like he's trying to signal to a certain crowd. What the fuck did Jackson do to deserve this? I mean, maybe you wanted to use my face, but you couldn't because I'm not exactly white, but this is such opportunistic fucking bullshit, right? The mythology of the white streamers. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say it. I make fun of white people all the time. I do it all the time. But it's never from a place of malice. It's always like in a joking way and shit. And, you know, it always, you know, I do that. And the reason I make fun of white people a lot sometimes is just because it's like, it's never really a critique of a race. It's more like a critique of what I perceive to be a cultural crisis, right? I mean, we all know that in the West, there's like a unique, rampant liberalism that reflects in all sorts of ways, lack of family ties, lack of upbringing and stuff like that. And like, I guess that's oftentimes that shit is associated with white. So I make fun of it all the time, right? But it's never from a place of malice. It's not from a place of malice, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't hate white people. At the end of the day, and then this is what I want to say though, is that, you know, you can keep posturing like this like a fucking dumbass. The majority of people in Canada and the United States, drum roll please, are white. It's the majority of people that fucking live here. And it's especially the majority of people that live in fucking Canada, Ewoks. So what is this like anti-white posturing even supposed to fucking mean? That's the majority of people that live there. What are you trying to accomplish with this shit? Like, what kind of posturing is this shit? What kind of fucking posturing is this? The mythology of white streamers. You know what this is? I'm going to call this bullshit out. This posturing where you're like critiquing white streamers or whatever, that's not done from a place of like non-white sovereignty. That's done from a place of some minorities who rely on white sugar daddy liberals, which are used by those sugar daddy liberals to like shit on the working class. That's just the fucking truth, you know? That's just the damn truth. It's always like the mythology of the white. It's just like when people are like, can the cis males please stop? Can the cis people please? That doesn't come from a place of seriously believing you're going to like somehow overthrow the dominance of cis people. That doesn't come from a place of seriously thinking you're going to actually eliminate males, men. You only make those statements and posture in that way from a perspective of taking their power for granted, right? And that's why both the kind of rightists and the leftists are both wrong on this, right? A lot of right-wing people are like, oh, leftists hate white people. It's an anti-white war against white people. No, you guys don't get it. It's not a war against white people because they don't pose any serious challenge to white people. Their leaders are still white. They're still old white Wall Street, whatever, old dudes. So they're not posing a challenge to white people. They're taking for granted the subordination of, whether indigenous or black or brown. They're taking for granted the power of white people, basically. And they're like, okay, we can make fun of you because you're in power. And that's why they do it, right? That's why you don't see this type of bullshit among, non-white people who are serious about sovereignty. They don't spend time giving a fuck about hating white people or whatever, or virtue signaling against white people, That's the truth. And it's not against white people, it's against the working class, by the way. It's because the majority of the working class is white in America and Canada. So when they're talking about white streamers or whatever, it's a way for them to sneakily, express their class elitism. Because you notice the white elites have no problem with shitting on white people. You go to the Met Gala, let me tell you something. If you go to the Met Gala and just start like, I hate white people this, white people that, they're all gonna like, oh, so true, I agree with you. They're all gonna fucking, Amber Heard is gonna be there. You're right, I agree with you. Fucking, who else is at the Met Gala? I don't even know who's there, but they're all gonna like, it's gonna snark like, I'm woke too. So it's like the elite white people who are woke are like, I make fun of white people as well. I'm woke and elite. And it's just a fucking form of class warfare against the working class. It's the biggest con game there is, right? And I find it pretty disappointing that this dude is kind of taking this direction, it seems like, because it's like, why, what, where's this even coming from? Like, when have we said anything new about this topic? We've always maintained the same position. We're not against indigenous sovereignty if it's a serious thing. We're against fucking sloganeering. I'm against the slogan "Land Back" because it's just an empty phrase and it's an empty slogan. So that's why I'm against it, right? But then you got these people are like, he also made a video against you supporting Samira. Let's check it out.
Hey everybody.
This is super cringe. I guess he was like, I wasn't really growing being allied to these people, so let me reach out to Paul Moron and Hakeem and see if yeah. Let's see if this is better.
3, 2, 1, and we are recording, everybody. All right, so I'm gonna do a quick video here. Just referring back to Mao's piece on combat liberalism, because Haas from Infrared did a trash stream last night. It was not good. Basically,
this is so weird because he like DM'd me. This is the same dude who let me show you what he DM'd me. He was like, what did he fucking say? He was like, he's like, glad to see you setting the record straight on discourse into reifying how Latin Americans ever claimed Christianity. He didn't like say anything bad in the DMs,
Basically, Samira Khan, his associate, I'll leave it at that, retweeted this pro.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean? What a weird thing to say. What a cringy thing to say, dude. You're literally like, what is this? Please. Thank you, Gleb. Appreciate you.
Infrared will win.
Appreciate you, Gleb.
British anti-PRC pick-me, who is disparaging Mesoamerican
An anti-POC pick-me. What a stupid fucking thing to say.
pre-compact civilization prior to the Spaniards and the Portuguese. And a lot of people know what I'm referring to. Yeah, so I'll just put on screen the screen cap of the original Ian Miles.
I love how, like, unapologetically, I love how much of an opportunist this guy is. He didn't even find he posted the screenshot that got 5,000 likes. And he's like, the only reason it became an event is because it got 5,000 likes. Like I said, if this had 2 likes, this Ewoks dude wouldn't have even cared about it. He's like, you know what? This got 5,000 likes. Clearly this is worth smearing someone over.
Tweet, which is showing the Aztec human sacrifice, which yes was a part of Aztec culture that happened sporadically here or there, but it's incomparable to the apocalypse of the colonialism brought on by the Spaniards, right? The genocide of indigenous people.
Wow, he's like going into a really long tangent from a retweet. You know, not every retweet is even an endorsement. Sometimes a retweet is just like a form of curiously being like, huh, interesting. Or like, huh, I wonder what my followers would think of this, or what would they make of it. Like, unless someone's saying something in their own words, like, you sound like a dumb fuck trying to respond to this. Like, she didn't write a book denigrating the Aztecs. She just retweeted some shit. Which I don't see why it's a big deal to retweet some fucking bullshit picture or whatever.
And of course the subsequent.
I didn't know how sensitive people are. I didn't know how sensitive people fucking are. Where it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, y'all can make fun of Middle Eastern people too. It's not like I'm gonna fucking get pissed off. Like, okay, yeah, go and post a picture like Carthage before the Romans showed up, and show the Carthaginians sacrificing babies, which might be their Phoenicians, right? And then say before the Romans showed up, and show them like eating babies. You think I'm gonna get mad or something? Like, I don't. It's just fucking stupid.
People. And then the racialized caste system that was enforced in Latin America, extreme exploitations of the peoples of this continent, a legacy that echoes into this day. And yeah, this and I would say, I would be like, fine. I would understand, you know, they're like, oh, Haas, what if we like apologized for French or European colonialism in the Middle East? And I'd be like, yeah, that would be fucked up. Except, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure Latin American culture is mestizo, which means mixed, which means there was a form of syncretism that happened rather than just one people dominating another people. There was a syncretism that happened where the former Aztecs appropriated aspects of the Spanish and Portuguese culture. So it wasn't like when the Europeans came to the Middle East or Africa where they just, you know, it wasn't where they were just like, it's pure gunpoint the whole time, you know? So it's not like we had a syncretism with, like, you know, the Europeans like that. So I don't really know what the fuck. I mean, I do agree the Aztecs are unfairly. I agree they're not given enough credit about. I don't know why I'm talking about this shit, honestly. I don't know why I'm talking about this shit. It's so stupid. It's literally so fucking. Like, I got in trouble for saying the Aztecs were socialist. I got in trouble for saying that. The fuck am I trying to apologize for? It's so fucking stupid. Logic about, oh, they were savage heart sacrificers before the.
Okay, where did she say that?
Spaniards came was the.
Okay, where did she say that?
Logic used to justify.
Okay, where did she say that?
Colonization.
Okay, where did she say that?
By said European power.
Okay, where did she say that?
Right, so anybody associated with an.
Okay, where did she say that?
Anti-imperialist, inherently
anti. Okay, dude, where did she say that? Can you please tell me where she said any of that?
The colonial movement should not be retweeting.
Cool, where did she say that?
This type of.
Oh, she shouldn't be retweeting. Gotcha.
Behavior, even if it wasn't the original quote. Now, I understand people can accidentally retweet.
All right, let me look at Ewoks' Twitter and just see if there's shit that I condemn that he shouldn't be retweeting. So let's just go to his Twitter. Because you know what? We're going to just start policing everything we retweet now. We're just gonna like start policing retweets and shit. So let's just see. Let's just start policing every retweet. The fuck? This is apologizing for Australian imperialism. I can't believe you retweeted this. So Ewoks, by retweeting this, you're apologizing for Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War, right? Is that included in Anzac Day or no? Anzac Day, is it only the First World War? Well, that's the imperialist war. No, I think it was also, yeah, it also is served and died in all wars, conflicts, and peacekeeping operations. Wait a minute! Ewoks is apologizing for Australia's involvement in the Vietnam War because that's covered by Anzac Day. So that's what Ewoks is doing. So Ewoks, I wanna do a stream explaining why Ewoks is defending and imperialism against Vietnam, because as someone who's 1% Vietnamese, I'm really offended by it. So personally, like, you know, Vietnam suffered great. He's basically trying to apologize for Australia's intervention into Vietnam. And I'm going to write a whole essay extrapolating Ewok's reasons for retweeting this, even though he didn't say any of it, but he did retweet it. So I'm just going to assume that, you know, he's apologizing for the Vietnam War. And yeah, I'm going to tell Luna Oya, but because this is really bad. This is really racist and really bad. This is super cancelable. You ask me, this is just super bad. Okay. Anything else? I don't know what the fuck happened. Like, what did I fucking do? What did me or Jackson do to deserve this bullshit, you know? This is just such weakness. This is such fucking weakness. Super pathetic. Yeah. Super pathetic and super weak. But this is Pogan's video for anyone. So this is where Pogan's gonna like defend Stalin and shit. Let's check it out.
Hey everyone, Pogan here again. I figured I would take a different route with this video and try something a little less formal. And
You're reaching? Dude, are you stupid? I'm reaching? I'm fucking reaching? That's the point. That's literally the fucking point. That's literally the fucking point, dumbass. The point is to illustrate how he was reaching, you dumbass. What are you fucking talking about?
hopefully a little more fun. We like to have fun here, right?
You thought wrong!
Just kidding, it's a red fascism video. I'm sure that by now you've heard content creators across leftist YouTube terribly indistinct from that of reaction Nazis, or just generally being awful people. The two biggest examples of this that often come up are Haas from the Infrared Collective and Jackson Hinkle, but there are others who fall into this category.
Why does Jackson get flack? He doesn't even do anything wrong.
Such as Caleb.
Jackson's only crime is literally being a his only crime is being like white and also like a high level white male, like in terms of his appearance, taking care of himself, like that's his crime. So the only people who are accepted, but if you are an ugly white guy, you're fine. If you are a LGBT white dude, you're fine. If you're like trans white, you're fine. If you're a white woman and you're like super feminist, you're fine. But Jackson is literally an unapologetic white man. And that's why he gets flack for this shit. It's the only reason. I'm actually the bad guy who hold on. How Jackson wants to raid us. We're gonna get a fat raid apparently. But you haven't redirect privileges. Oh, community settings. Okay, I'm gonna go into my community settings. And then redirect privileges for the dive with Jackson Hinkle. Okay, YouTube Studio, community settings, community. Who can redirect to my channel? The dive with Jackson Hinkle. Change who can redirect you. Learn how to change. Okay.
Based.
They call us red brown and then turn around and apologize for ass off.
Thank you, Orville. Yeah, exactly. The dive with who can redirect to my channel. Oh, paste the channel URL. Okay, got it. That's what I have to do. So the dive with Jackson. That. Grab that. Put that here. There we go. Perfect. Save. All right, he's gonna raid us. We're gonna get a fat raid, apparently. Okay, let's just. We should actually introduce ourselves to this audience because this is gonna be a big ass raid from Jackson, like really big, right? Super big raid. Yeah. But anyway, what we're really talking about here with this accusation of a red-brown alliance is, I will admit, there is something very, very different about infrared specifically compared to everyone else, which I can see why people are like, okay, they're clearly not like other MLs. They're not like anyone else. They're completely different in every kind of fucking way. Yeah, Jackson's fucking, he's like bigger than Destiny now. He's fucking huge. I don't even know why he still talks to me, you know? Yeah, the real thing we're talking about with the so-called red-brown alliance is basically cultural. You guys, do you want me to tell you the secret of why Haas is so fucking, do you want to know why I'm so different from other leftists? No, genuinely. You want to know why? Is it because I'm secretly an Oswald? Is it secretly? No, I'm just more mature than most of you. I've been in this longer than most of you. I've thought about these things more intensely. Listen, it's kind of like, you know how the dad in the family is going to be more like stepping outside the bounds and being like toxic and shit? That's why I'm like the patriarch of leftism. I'm the patriarch of the left, okay? And I'm saying that shit. You're based. Jackson's a frat boy following money. Bruh. An attack against Jackson is an attack against me. Period. Period. You can't attack Jackson without attacking me. But what I'm trying to say is that I spent a really long time trying to defend leftism. I was a leftist. Actually, this is what I want to talk about when it comes to Breadtube. A lot of people, you don't know my past. I'm older than Breadtube. I mean, I was an ideological fanatic. I was fanatical about leftism. I was super, you guys want to know how fucking feminist I was? You don't know who I was, guys. You don't know who the fuck I was. I was a fanatical feminist to the point where I denied any essential difference between man and woman. I used to think men and women are completely the same. The physical differences are vestige from the animal kingdom. And otherwise, men and women are completely the same. I was super woke. I mean, no, I wasn't just woke. You want to know what it came from, though? It wasn't Breadtube. It wasn't like woke leftism or anything. It was Adorno and critical theory, right? So I was following the Frankfurt School. So my idea was genuinely that there are no fundamental differences. The the Cartesian cogito is the privileged site of subjectivity. It's just the complete negation posed by human subjectivity that defines us. Everything else is incidental, part of the animal kingdom. But the reason I wasn't soy, I was never soy. It was just that I was so extreme about it. It was almost like it turned into Giga Chad because I was so fucking extreme about it. Because I believed in the destruction of everything. I believed in all-encompassing, complete destruction of the world and everything. I believed in complete destruction and the ascension of humanity into a kind of ethereal, angelic subjectivity of just even worse, like. And I wasn't always a Marxist-Leninist either. I used to have the view that the problem with Marxism-Leninism to me was that it was too... I really sympathized with Bordiga or whatever, where I was like, Stalin wasn't authoritarian enough. He wasn't extreme enough. I hated Trotsky too, but I was like super... I'm really disappointing you guys, aren't I? Right? Because you always want to think that I was always this, like, I've always had the views that I have, and I haven't. There was a time I was an extreme leftist, like very much to the point of insanity, to the point of like mental illness, right? But I was so principled about it. I was never soy. I was never soy because I was principled. And I took it to its furthest horrifying conclusion. I took it to like its most horrifying conclusion possible. And so when people want to ask Haas, why do you come from the perspective you are? Why is it so easy for you to like, signal toward the right, I guess, and just, you don't really care about the slogans or labels, and you always like joke about Trump, and you always joke about shit, and you don't take the leftism seriously like a sacred cow. Well, the reason is because I literally took leftism to its furthest, most extreme possible conclusion. Holy shit, Jackson, with that raid, with that fat raid. Welcome, Raiders, and thank you, Jackson, for the raid. Hi, Jackson viewers. I am the future leech of Jackson's channel. I'm just kidding. But I'm Haas from Infrared. I don't know if y'all have heard from me. I don't know if y'all know me. I came from Twitch and I got banned for being pro-Russia. And I was covering the conflict in a similar way Jackson was on YouTube. So they banned me from Twitch. And, here I am. I'm on YouTube now. I'm not really covering the Russia stuff beyond bigger types of news. Thank you so much, Coding Jesus. I'm not really covering the Russia stuff beyond like the bigger news, just because, it's not particularly interesting to me. Thank you, Coding Jesus.
1,000
Appreciate you.
Spartans.
But if you guys want to know what this channel's about, what I'm about, I'm a Marxist-Leninist. This channel is going to be more ideologically oriented. It's more kind of, we have more theory oriented. We have more of the ideology kind of stuff. It's more kind of focused on a more broad view about history and events and shit. We don't really focus on details all that much, right? But welcome, guys. Thank you so much. Jackson is my biggest ally, as a streamer, So appreciate the raid, and welcome, guys. So yeah, we're Marxist. We call ourselves Marxism, Leninism in the age of multipolarity in the post-COVID world. We try to kind of give a broader type of insight when it comes to understanding the history of Marxism, Leninism, when it comes to understanding the history of communism. So it's more kind of like the ideological side of things. And the highlight of our channel is going to be our infrared vision videos, because we are a collective. Infrared is a collective of about like 11 people, and we produce these videos that kind of give these they're based on broad topics about the present, about history, about socialism, whatever. So if you go and look at our infrared vision videos, you're gonna find, what the main thrust of what the channel's about. Also, we've got another thing I do as a live streamer is I debate. I'm a debater. I debate a lot of people. Oh wait, you know what? You guys know who I am. You guys know who I am because you saw me debate Destiny. You saw me debate Destiny, right? Yeah, I was partnered up with Jackson to debate Destiny. And yeah. So yeah, we basically have fun here. We chill. It's a more chill vibe. It's more late night chill type of vibe. I don't really cover news all that intently. I don't really have a lot of news to be covering tonight. But I talk about things like Breadtube, the fake synthetic leftists, and that's really what I was talking about today. But are you the guy who was in drugs Discord server? Nope. I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't know what drugs Discord. Yeah. Okay. Back to my origin story. I'll get back to that. So anyway, I used to be a very extreme lefty, and yes, I was like, it was super, super extreme, right? Super. And it was based on the Frankfurt School. I was a student of the Frankfurt School. I liked Adorno a lot. Was a big fan of Adorno. And Adorno, if you don't know who Adorno is, Theodor Adorno was one of the main theorists of a school of boring German party poopers called the Frankfurt School. And it's also broadly termed and called critical theory. It's the school of critical theory. And more or less, they're basically these kind of, what should I call them except grumpy Kantians. It's the school of grumpy Kantianism, where they basically kind of have this view that the project of the Enlightenment, right, beginning, or even the modern age, beginning with Descartes and Cartesian subjectivity, has somehow gone wrong, right, through history, and specifically the experience of World War II and the Holocaust has proven that it had gone wrong somehow, right? So they wanted to preserve what they considered the rational kernel of the Enlightenment while being able to withstand and weather this kind of nightmare that, Enlightenment rationality was being posed with in the form of.
Adorno was super anti-protester. He called the new left activists fascist slow.
Thank you, Max. Adorno, I'll get to that stuff, right? But basically they had a view that it was basically like, it's basically the worst thing ever, more or less. Like, so much of my critique of leftism comes from the fact that I understand the Frankfurt School so well because I was a disciple of the Frankfurt School, right? And I understand how you get from the Frankfurt School to Vosh. I know the direct line from Frankfurt School to Vosh, right? And Frankfurt School has a specific view where they privilege abstraction and they privilege Cartesian subjectivity and they privilege kind of Enlightenment universalism. While with all the criticisms notwithstanding, it's a type of criticism that's in the spirit of preserving those things. And Adorno specifically, his notion of negative dialectics, it's a pretty terrifying thing, right? So with Hegel's dialectic system, Hegel kind of has, you begin with, people like thesis, antithesis, synthesis is basically how people simplify it. But with Hegel's dialectic system, it basically follows this like tripart structure of like, you have an original an original being, an original unity of being, right? And then you have a negation, negativity, the negation, right, of being. So you have being, the negation of being, and then you have the negation of the negation, which reconciles that negation into a new form of being, a new form of positive being, right? That's my interpretation, at least. Well, Adorno was such a grumpy asshole that he said, what if Hegel got it wrong and that the conclusion of the dialectic ends in the negation? So what if the negation can be privileged as the privileged site of an ontology, right? So Alexander Kojev reinterpreted Hegel in his own way, right, through Heidegger. Adorno reinterpreted Hegel through Lukács and through the Neo-Kantian school. So Kant, if you don't know this, it's hard to introduce all of these things to you. If you don't know this, Kant is known as like the philosopher of negation within the Hegelian scheme, because Kant arrives at this point of universal, complete negation of all reality in the world. It leads us into this point of like total skepticism, where we can't know anything except the fact that we know nothing, right? We can't know it. It's agnosticism. The only thing we can be certain of is that we're not certain of anything, right? We can only have certainty in the absolute object of the transcendental subjectivity. We can't actually know anything in particular, anything positively in particular. So Kant represents this total, complete negation, right? If you don't know this, okay, I'm going to explain to you German idealism. So before Kant, we have a more wholesome experience of reality, supposedly, according to philosophy, where maybe with empiricism, we can actually know things through the world. I can know that this shit is because I'm sensing it somehow or whatever. And then in rationalism, knowledge comes from reason alone, and I can just purely, how do I know that this exists? Well, I can just justify it through some kind of circular reasoning or whatever. So Kant comes in and says, actually, you can't really be certain about anything at all. That you don't know that there's a connection actually between your what's in here, right? This kind of sphere of cogito and knowledge and the outside world. You can't even know that. How do I know that this thing actually exists in the real world objectively? How do I know it's not just a product of the transcendental structure of the world created by my mind, right? So Kant kind of creates this like skepticism of like, okay, what is real and what is not real? You can't know. You can only know that the real thing is transcendental subjectivity. So you can only know that the real thing is the transcendental object, right? You can only know the real thing. The only thing you can be certain in is the like things like the synthetic a priori, right? And
Us, the most based and informed modern communist. Us for CPU's Supreme Leader 2036.
Thank you, Fred Helm. Appreciate you. You can only know, for example, that you can only know like the a priori structures of space and time through your intuitions. You can only know the categories of the understanding. I think there are 12 categories of the understanding. Whatever, right? Okay. There you go. That's Kant, negation, right? Then with Hegel comes along and critiques Kant for this and says, you end at the negation. Well, there's a reconciliation of this problem and dilemma, this antinomy that you've confronted us with the challenge of trying to overcome somehow, right? So Adorno, the asshole, comes in responding to Hegel and basically says, okay, we are faced with this fundamental ontological question, whether we want to admit it or not. I am of the view that Heidegger's ontological revolution applies beyond Heidegger himself. Lukács was trying to deal with the same thing, whatever, right? And from that perspective, from that Lukácsian perspective, Kant remains the privileged thinker of a thank you, Stuart.
Was Caesar right about Hegel and Fallout New Vegas?
No. No, I don't think so.
Based.
Thank you, Rare Wolf. Appreciate you. So more or less, just trying to explain this to you guys. Bear with me, right? More or less. So Lukács, the thinker, he was a Marxist thinker, Lukács. Lukács was a philosopher, okay? They were looking at the 10s or the 20s. And he's like, okay, we have this Bolshevik revolution happening, and we have this issue of philosophy. How do we reconcile philosophy with Marxism, right? Let's actually interrogate what the philosophical meaning of Marxism is based on the experience of social democracy, which was, so okay, basically, Marx comes out, he has this communist manifesto, whatever, and he says there's going to be a revolution, both politically and economically, which leads to the transformation from capitalism to socialism. And Marx has this new epistemology of historical materialism, which is basically understanding society in a way that includes, or at least gives some kind of primacy to the material relations of production, the various classes that constitute society, yada, 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 right? Well, in German social democracy, in social democracy in general, you had this unity between Marxist theory and a workers' movement. So you have these people who've discovered this by Marx, predicting that this shit was going to happen, while at the same time actively building this movement, realizing what was going to happen. So Lukács comes as a philosopher and he goes, okay, there's kind of this paradox, which other people have brought up before, which is like, okay, are you making a prediction about what's going to happen? In terms of, like, Marx makes all these predictions about the future and the proletariat. What is the relationship between knowledge and practice? What is the relationship between our knowledge of the world and the object of the knowledge, right? Is anyone following me here? What is the relationship between our knowledge of the world and the object of that knowledge? So if I'm sitting here as a theorist and I'm saying the proletariat is a revolutionary class and this revolution is going to happen, how could I justify participating in that very process actively? Why would I try and make something happen that I already know is inevitable? So social democracy was a workers' movement that united all of these intellectuals who had this scientific insight into having a class analysis and the future, while at the same time participating in the very thing, okay? So you've got that down. Okay, good. So Lukács comes along and says, oh, this opens some kind of philosophical problem. And I want to justify, from a philosophical perspective, how this is possible. And for Lukács, he basically arrives at the conclusion that in order for this to be possible, Kant's fundamental gesture of criticism has to be privileged ontologically as as basically like the truth of being itself. So Kant's gesture of introducing a split in the world, which is between a world of things that are in themselves as they actually are, and the world of appearances, which is the world of things as they appear to us. So Kant introduces a split in the world that I told you about, where you can't know anything about the real world. What is this in itself? So I'm looking at this shit, and my mind is constructing reality in such a way that it's going to appear to me in the form of this thing right here. And what do I call this? This fucking... What is this called again? It's a... What is it called? It's a fucking... carton. Yeah, a carton. A carton. That's what it's called. Carton. Yeah, carton. Okay. So, what is this thing in itself without the way in which my mind actively is shaping the world in order for this to appear to me as a carton, right? So, Kant introduces that split there's a world of things in themselves, and then there's the world of things for the subject, right? It's not for itself, sorry, for the subject, for us, for itself and for us. So for me, it appears this way. In itself, what does it appear as? Well, that's the split that Kant introduced. So Lukács comes trying to philosophically make sense of and rigorously justify the experience of social democracy. And he says, I know how to make sense of the paradox in question of, what is this inevitable proletarian revolution that's going to happen, which nonetheless requires this movement of conscious party intellectuals to actively be involved in it and to realize the very thing that they have already decided was going to be inevitable, right? So Lukács comes and he basically says, this is how you make sense of it. This is how you can understand it. Now, the proletariat in itself, and the proletariat for our knowledge, right, is actually unified through this party movement. So social democracy was famous for the saying, social democracy is the unity between something like theory and Marxism and the party movement. Correct. Sorry. It's the unity of Marxism and the workers' movement, something like that, or the unity of the party and the workers' movement. Someone tell me what exact. I forgot exactly what the quote was. Right. And Lukács interprets that in the same sense of Kant's. What is it called again? Kant's transcendental unity, the unity of what is it called? Apperception? Fuck. Apperception. Yeah. Apperception. The unity of apperception. Yeah. The unity of apperception. Same thing. Okay. So for Kant, there has to be some fundamental unity between the world as it actually is and the world as we experience it. We just can't know the particularity of that unity, but that is a precondition for experience to be possible. Okay? So in the same way, Lukács says, basically applies the same thing as far as reinterpreting Marxism in the spirit of the experience of social democracy. Lukács comes and says that the proletariat is just a class in itself. In order to be a class for itself, not just in itself, which is the object of a philosopher, it has to acquire consciousness of itself. So the consciousness of the proletariat and the proletariat in itself becomes unified in the party movement. That movement, which maintains the basic structure of transcendental criticism. Sorry, of transcendence. So it's the party movement that maintains the Kantian structure of transcendence, which is between the world of things as they actually are and as they appear for us. And so for but here's the thing with Lukács. This is where it gets problematic, right? Because, okay, that sounds very good. Because what Lukács is basically trying to do is we're just critiquing the this kind of bourgeois metaphysics, which is pre-critical and which just sees a world of things in themselves, and it's our task as passive subjects to discern the nature of the world in itself, right? And Lukács is critiquing that. But here's the problem. Lukács has to deny the possibility for any real knowledge of the world of things as they actually are in themselves to be possible, in the same way that Kant does. And why? Because for Lukács, the very fact that the proletariat, it's like a what is it called? What is that infinitely self-referential loop called? It's an infinitely self-referential loop. It's like a mathematical, what is it fucking called again? Someone, what is it fucking called? Someone got this. Not taught. Recursion. Yes, recursion. It's like an infinite kind of recursion, because recursion is what I was looking for. It's an infinite kind of recursion, because the proletariat in itself, the class in itself, contains the very consciousness of itself. It does not have any substantive material reality. It doesn't have any substantive material being. It itself, its being, is not determined, but is reflected by the critical structure itself. So it's like an infinite recursion. The proletariat, so class consciousness means consciousness of the class that is itself conscious of itself. Consciousness of the class that is itself conscious of itself. Huh. That kind of sounds familiar to those of you familiar with German idealism, doesn't it? Doesn't it? What does that remind you of exactly? Consciousness of the class that is itself conscious of itself. That's the quintessential Kantian knowledge. Kant. A human being that is conscious, it's the Kantian self-consciousness. It's the self-consciousness of Kant. The recursive self-consciousness of Kant. So the task of criticism isn't so much about discovering the real features of the world as much as it is acquiring consciousness of the very structure that enables the possibility for the world to open itself to us in the way that it does. And I know I'm saying the word open itself to us is very strange because it sounds Heideggerian, but
Based.
Infrared meetup at Michigan Speedway for the NASCAR race in August? The crowd lives and breathes working class, much like Infrared Nation.
Thank you for the 5, but no. So continuing off of what I said, Lukács basically is refashioning Kant's critical philosophy in such a way that it becomes ontological. It becomes something about being itself. He's not going to acknowledge that, because if he acknowledges that, he's going to give credence. It's actually Heidegger who was inspired by Lukács, by the way. But he's not going to acknowledge that, but it is about being. It's an ontologization of Kant. Which is why, not a lot of people know this, but Lukács rejected Engels for the exact same reason. Friedrich Engels was a Hegelian. Engels believed we could know things about nature. We could understand that in nature itself, you can discern. Like, the same truth of class struggle is also the same truth of nature for Engels. For Engels, there's no strict division between the world of consciousness and the world of whatever things in and of themselves. He agrees with Hegel's specific way of overcoming that distinction. So Engels has a book called Dialectics of Nature, where he is basically describing nature in a dialectical way, in a way that's consistent with the whole of Marxist philosophy. Sorry, I don't want to call it philosophy, of Marx's materialism. Now, Lukács takes issue with this because for Lukács, this is a form of what Kant would call metaphysical enthusiasm, basically. Engels is being too greedy about the extent of his ability to apply knowledge and insight to nature, because nature is just a sphere that is totally contingent. We can't know anything about it. All we can know is the critical structure imposed by humanity upon the world. We can have self-consciousness about the way in which we as human beings distort the world. We just can't know anything about the world in and of itself, including the world of nature. So we're getting to this kind of extreme point of the thinking of the Enlightenment, where with this ontologization of the critical, Kant's critical gesture, everything in the world that's meaningful, from our humanity, from our culture, from our history, our statehood, our society, whatever you want to call it, the entire world of human meaning has to reduce itself to this kind of vacuum-sealed, negative, vacuum-sealed negation of the world and of nature and of everything, right? So meaning reduces itself to the point of negation, like this violent point at which human beings kind of create their own world through the very structure of human sociality and human discourse. So to skip everything that happened afterwards with Adorno, Horkheimer, and Marcuse, this basically ends with Habermas. Habermas is like the successor to the Frankfurt School, and Habermas basically comes to the conclusion that language represents this kind of abstract medium through which human beings filter the world, and that what he calls communicative reason, which is the ability to have discursive, this discursive rationality between human subjects, is the site of meaning and reality and even being, if you will. And that's all we can really rely on. He's basically like a fucking liberal. Habermas is basically like a democratic liberal, right? He's basically like, I'm gonna just sum it up and be vulgar. He's like, okay guys, let's just sit down and talk about it. And we can't really know things about anything, but we need the ability to sit down and mediate and talk about things. Okay, let's talk about ecology and see what we can do and do something about it. Sit down in a circle and talk about things. I'm surprised Breadtube doesn't reference Habermas, because like, if there's ever a thinker who I think would represent like democratic ownership of the means of production, like let's all have a workers' co-op and sit down and discuss, it's Habermas. He would be like the quintessential philosopher or thinker for that, right? Okay, now we're going back in time a little bit to Adorno and Horkheimer and Marcuse. The experience of World War II places all of this in a new context. I'm also skipping Walter Benjamin. And the reason I'm skipping Walter Benjamin is because he wasn't as bad as those guys. Walter Benjamin was kind of interesting. He was into the Kabbalah and he was into that kind of mysticism. I think he deserves more than just this reductive shit that I'm doing now. But Adorno and the rest of them basically following from Adorno was introduced to Marxism through Lukács, right? And Adorno maintains this kind of critical turn Lukács makes, this ontologization of Kantian criticism, in a way that is not strictly applied to the question of justifying Marxism, but as it applies to culture and it applies to society. So, for example, Adorno, everyone knows that Adorno hated jazz. Do you guys want to know why Adorno hated jazz, though? I mean, a lot of people don't know why he actually did hate jazz. Well, I'll tell you why he hated jazz. Adorno was butthurt about jazz because for him, jazz was a form of experiencing. Sorry, give me a second. Jazz was a type of. Hold on. It's so fucking weird. So fucking weird. Hold on, give me a sec. Give me a sec. Okay, here we are. Yeah, jazz was this specific type of popular music. And I'm actually kind of confused about why Adorno, I think I do know why he didn't also apply this to folk music. I actually do know why he didn't apply it to folk music. For Adorno, there is a distinction between high culture and the quiche, right? And I could be wrong about this. I might be a little foggy about explaining this. So I'm open to being stand corrected about how I describe Adorno's hatred of jazz. But it's a little more complicated than you'd think. For Adorno, there's a basic distinction between high culture and quiche, right? So quiche basically is this kind of consumption of culture, low tasteless culture, right? Where you're just kind of consuming it without thinking about it. It's more intuitive, whatever. And it does not impose upon you the painful structure, the painful kind of like transcendental structure of culture, society, and reality. It doesn't direct you into being able to critically think about the conditions of its own possibility, basically. So that's why he calls it fascist. Not Funko Pops. I'm not talking. Think about like rap and hip hop or folk music or something like that. So for Adorno, that's quiche. Quiche is basically shit that we're just dancing along to. We intuitively enjoy it, but Adorno is a fucking party pooper and he's sitting there. So Adorno's literally the guy at the party in the corner when everyone's dancing and he's being like, they don't know that they're actually participating in false consciousness and reified forms of, like, he's basically, they don't know that they're actually completely blind to the real transcendental structures that are actually defining them. He's basically like so committed to the project of the Enlightenment that for him, enlightenment also means critical reflection. He's not like a Steven Pinker proponent of the Enlightenment, where for him enlightenment means we're just fully conscious of everything. Adorno doesn't want us to be fully conscious of everything as much as he wants us to be conscious about the fact that we can't be conscious of everything. He wants us to be conscious of the basic violence of criticism that defines reality. He just wants us to know that we shouldn't be enjoying anything. We shouldn't be doing that because we just need to sit here and be victimized by the basic violence of the transcendental structure of reality, basically. So for Adorno, it's not that he wants everyone to be conscious of the real reality to do something. He just wants people to be conscious of the fundamental tragedy of the fact that it's not possible. So he hated... Now, why did he hate jazz? Is it because for him jazz was just quiche? Well, no, not really. So for Adorno, high culture inspires us with the ability to critically reflect upon the conditions of its own possibility. And also, by extension, the world, to critically reflect upon the world some kind of way, of the truth of the world as a whole thing, right? Now, jazz is specifically going to be a problem for Adorno because someone can please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for Adorno, jazz was not just quiche. Quiche can just be like some village folk music or some shit like that. It was like a new type of mass industrialized quiche where the material reality of the Enlightenment and of rational enlightenment, specifically in the form of modern industry and commodity production, general commodity production, and this kind of total artificialization of reality and experience. So for Adorno, jazz was a product of that. And yet, horrifically, jazz does not inspire us with the appreciation of the extent to which we have been fully kind of like colonized or subsumed or dominated by modern rational technological whatever reality. So that's the specific reason Adorno has a problem with jazz. It's not so much that it's the old type of quiche, but it's like this new type of quiche which horrifically takes advantage of what he considers the structure of the Enlightenment without allowing us to critically reflect upon that very same structure. And the horrific thing for Adorno is that it's artificial. It's artificial. It's not just like natural village folk music. It's an artificial recreation of that through modern industry and through this violence of modernity without giving it. Kind of gaslights us, right? And there's kind of a point there, right?
Adorno was a composer, so he hated the lack of structure. He called it destructive because it threw out everything in music theory outside the basics of keeping a consistent time, etc.
Now I'm gonna ask, thank you for the time, but I'm gonna ask you a question because I'm not sure if that's why he hated it. But I'm gonna ask you a question about that because I'll get to you in a second. So Adorno, there's kind of a truth to that, right? We kind of sit here, and it's kind of scary because we're thinking, we think a great deal of things are natural. We experience them as natural and given and organic, but they're actually horrifically the product of like uniquely modern, rational industry. So it's like the Matrix. You're experiencing reality, normal, whatever, but then you don't know all of the wires and all of the fucking real shit that's going into projecting this basic experience. Actually, I think the Matrix is the best example to understand what I'm talking about here. When I'm talking about the structure of criticism, I'm talking about the Matrix. We experience the reality as normal, natural, whatever, but then behind the scenes, there's all numbers and code and wires and all of this shit that we can't see, but which nonetheless conditions the possibility of our experience. So that's what we're talking about here. It's a perfect example, just for dumb fucks who need, and it's nothing wrong with being a dumb fuck. Sometimes being a dumb fuck is just saving time, right? So that's true about how we consume everything. When you watch a movie, you don't know, I mean, the extent to which we have to intervene into nature through this violent, domineering, logocentric, he doesn't use this language, but I am, modern rationality. We're not inspired to reflect critically upon that violence. Now that's Adorno's problem, okay? That's Adorno's specific problem. So for Adorno, emancipation, even though he was extremely pessimistic about it, amounts to the ability to have some kind of cognizance and awareness about how much our reality can't be taken for granted. So we take responsibility for our world. Although Adorno did frame his concern primarily in the form of like the end of any authentic spontaneity. So that might just be my interpretation as well, which is the opposite. I'm saying conscious responsibility. He's saying the problem is that nothing is authentically spontaneous anymore. I mean, everything we do is somehow stamped or marked by the structure of rational modernity. critical structure of rational modernity. Nothing is just authentic. How can we have any more human authenticity? Right? That's kind of Adorno's problem. But okay, so Adorno, by the way, if you want to know what music he liked, and this is why I wanted to ask that question to the super chat guy, Adorno liked Schoenberg's atonality because of the way in which it upset and it freed music from the constraints of like the tyranny of the tonal structure. So is it really that his problem was that it didn't have structure? I mean, I know atonal music has structure, but it doesn't really have melody. You want to see Schoenberg's shitty music? Let me just show you how ugly this music was. I think this is an example of his. No, let me find the example. Okay, no, this was during his tonal period. Let me see. What is the one I wanted to see? What is that fucking... Trying to get a good example for you. So that's the music that I know I'm not doing it justice. All the snobs, that fuck you, bitch. It's ugly music. It's ugly music. It's just hideous, very it doesn't have melody. It's just hideous, ugly music. Now you say you like the ugliness because it makes you critically reflect on the world or whatever, but it's just extremely ugly, right? It's just ugly and shitty. Well, that's the music that Adorno liked. So Adorno, I think, hated jazz for all the wrong reasons. I don't think he hated it because it lacked structure. I think Adorno hated it because he thought it was giving people a false sense of spontaneity and a false sense of authenticity. I think that's the issue. For him, at least. But he was a wrong asshole who was trying to gatekeep human authenticity and spontaneity. And I can get into my really raw critique of Adorno, but instead of doing that, I want to talk to you about how this circles back to Breadtube and how I was able to, like, the reason leftism is just so predictable to me is because I think leftism does kind of, in the West, Western leftism specifically, takes the form of ontologizing negation. Negation specifically. And how do you get from that, from Vosch's support of NATO and US imperialism? It's really simple, right? The US is a democracy, and in a democracy, we have some way of consciously participating in the real world of meaning and humanity and life, because our intuitive, actual, authentic humanity can't be trusted. That's fascism. That's our bad whatever. We have to have this basic structure mediating the relationship between our consciousness and the world, that is the only site of meaning, right? So it's very easy to arrive at a pro-West. You know, the anti-Germans, the anti-Deutsch people who waved American flags and Israeli flags, those were Frankfurt School, Adorno. They were also disciples of Adorno as well. I'm Adorno's worst nightmare. I'm the complete opposite of that guy. But that was my old orientation. And by the way, everything shitty and cringe about Zizek comes from Adorno, right? So you take that to its fullest conclusion, and you basically arrive at a point in which you have this false sense of spontaneous, raw human authenticity, and then the domineering structure of rational modernity. And then the only thing we can do is pessimistically and in a doomer way reflect upon how much we are fucked by the latter, and how much any human spontaneity is completely erased and gone, and what the implications of that are going to be. And if we can find some emancipation in that very fact, some kind of new freedom for humanity, which Adorno was pessimistic about. But can you debate any actual academic philosophers instead of streamers? They're not going to be good at debating. They're not used to actually being pressed, you know? So that's the issue. They're not used to participating in dialectics that intensely. Okay, Anglican Hegelian. You want to debate me because I shit-talked Anglicanism once. Okay? I'm going to confess something to you. I don't have a set thing on Anglicanism, okay? My vague impression of Anglicanism is that it artificially reproduces the hierarchies of the Catholic Church arbitrarily. Now, I could be wrong. I just don't care. I'm not going to attack Anglicanism. If you think...
How does Badiou fit into this?
Badiou is on the other side of the aisle. So there's a civil war in academia, which is between the French and the Germans. Why? Because the Germans are going to be the Kantian critical people, right? And the French are going to also take their inspiration from Germans, but the based German, who is Heidegger. So the French are reflecting on Heidegger, Alexander Kojev, Sartre. I don't like Sartre, but he's one of them. Bataille, he's kind of less well known, and then you have Lacan and Deleuze, and then Lyotard and the rest of them, and also Badiou. Badiou is not a critical asshole, but Badiou does fall into the issue of he is pre-critical. So he's pre-critical. Yeah, Derrida is big too. No, Althusser is not. Actually, I don't know. Where would Althusser fit in that scheme? I don't know. I think Althusser was just like a Catholic priest, That's kind of how I would see it. He was not a Catholic priest, but he was like a Catholic student. Althusser, I don't think, is following he's not following the Kojev school, or he's not. I don't think he's responding to Heidegger, but Althusser was actually an ideologist first and foremost. He was like a guy interested in defending Marxism. So he's kind of similar with Lukács in that regard, right? Existentialism is a fraudulent enterprise. It comes from, again, Heidegger. It's a specific way of responding to questions that Heidegger had actually introduced into the field of thought. So yeah. But the thing is with Badiou and the rest of them, those are kind of like those are gonna be people who are rejecting the Kantian, or trying to otherwise resist this Kantian split, right? Those what people like Spinoza. Spinoza's the philosopher. You know how they say France are perverts. Not to denigrate the French, but it's like the French are kind of out here, like, wanting to think about real things, real objects of reason, and actually jump to conclusions, and, be passionate about things, and, just kind of have this, like, perverse experience of partial drives, whatever. And then you also have people like Lacan, who, will have like a peep show about that. Like, oh, you want to see it? You want to see it? You cannot see my... Okay, I'm just kidding. But no one's going to understand these jokes at all. I'm sorry. But then you have the Germans over here who are just sitting and they're just like... You cannot know anything. Can only reflect, can only have reflection. So they're more interested in the contemplative and reflective side of things, as always, and the French are interested in the passion of knowledge and reason, so on and so on. Yeah, it's all the stereotypes are correct. The Germans, they're colder and they're more stuck up, and the French, all the stereotypes apply as far as these different differences in schools of thought. I side with the French, by the way. I am French gang. I'm definitely more French. Or actually, I hate the Frankfurt School in its entirety. I think Habermas is an asshole. I don't like Habermas. And I have nothing to do. I don't like Kantianism. I don't like neo-Kantianism, which may shock you because Kantbot is like one of my best friends. But he's like the exception. He's the only exception I've ever met. I also don't like Spinoza. Don't get me wrong. I fucking hate Spinoza. But I just agree more with the French way of I agree with the French mania, right? All these French guys are maniacal in their ambition. They're not just sitting and being like pessimistic, down in the dumps type of, type of people, right? So anyway, how do you get from there to Breadtube though? Basically, it all has to do with this kind of taking the Western modernity and Western Enlightenment to such an extreme conclusion where all of these other cultures. So for example, let's have an Adorno critique of Russia. So an Adorno critique of Russia would be like, okay, Putin's the leader and everyone experiences him as the leader, but that's only because they're manipulated by the totalitarian structure of Russia. And the fact that there's all of these, they superimpose the logos of modern rationality where it doesn't exist, but they superimpose it there anyway, which leads to this kind of extremely distrustful.
Could you explain why Debrin and Ilenkov so obsessed with claiming Spinoza, to the point where they claim he's Marx without a beard?
Hell no! But who's Debrin? I don't know who Debrin. I'm so ignorant. I'm so sorry. I'm looking him up now. He was a Soviet philosopher. I've never even heard of him before. I forgive Ilyenkov. Did Ilyenkov actually say Spinoza was Marx without a beard, because that's extremely disgusting. But I guess I'll forgive him. Guys, the view count is high because Jackson rated me. Just don't worry about it. That was because of that was just because of sorry, I'm blanking. Ilyenkov rehabilitates Spinoza because Ilyenkov is also facing this issue of the ontological question. What are the implications of Marx's materialism for being? And Ilyenkov's response to that is basically to say that in order to consistently be materialists, we have to basically adopt a notion of the Spinoza's substance. How do you reconcile the fact of thinking and consciousness and thoughts with a materialist ontology? So, and for Ilyenkov, thought, consciousness, and reason and spirit are attributes of substance, of a material substance of some kind. Now, this is a metaphysical view and not a materialist view. It's a metaphysical view because substance is a dogmatic concept of thought. It doesn't actually have any determinate particular reality, right? So it's a complete misunderstanding of materialism, which is inherent in Soviet Marxism-Leninism, actually, not just Ilyenkov. It's an inherent limitation. They cannot actually justify what Lenin did. So basically, Lukács and all of them are trying to deal with this split represented by the Second International between the flat object of Marxist consciousness, historical materialism, the class struggle and everything, and then these like the structure of the party form. So Soviet Marxism-Leninism is inheriting the same problem Lukács inherited. They're all trying to like make sense of how these two... Now, Stalin doesn't have an issue with this. He understands it intuitively, but when you're looking at this from a conscious philosophical perspective, you end up with these deviations like Ilyenkov, where you have to justify it with Spinoza. So Ilyenkov is the mirror image of Lukács, actually. Lukács responds to it with Kant, which is basically this exaggeration of the kind of transcendent side of consciousness, right? A negation. Whereas Lukács is investing too much at the level of immanence and not negation, but some dogmatic reified form of positive being in the form of substance. But it's two sides of the same coin. But the difference is, I like Ilyenkov. Why? Because Ilyenkov was brave enough to, like, in a very Russian way, arrive at consequences of his thinking, like the highest conclusion. If he really wants to reconcile dialectical materialism with an ontology, so for him, this is the conclusion of dialectical materialism and resolving this contradiction between material substance and the thinking spirit, which is the highest attribute of substance. The thinking spirit enters a limit eventually, which is also a problem of natural science, the existential problem imposed upon us, of entropy. Now, if you don't know what this issue of entropy is from the second law of thermodynamics, basically, there's a heat death of the universe that awaits us. Eventually, there will be no more free energy that gives rise to novelty, and that we will just everything will just get cold and we'll all just freeze and die. There will be no more free energy to be used by the system, the closed system that is the cosmos. Okay? So Ilyenkov also understands this in the form of the thinking spirit reaching the highest point of its development, at which point, as an attribute of substance, it can no longer participate in creative and novel forms in the cosmos. Thinking spirit will reach this calcifying point in which it is faced with the possibility that it may descend into the recesses of substance, into the cold, dark night. The light of the thinking consciousness will be extinguished forever. Scary. So what does Ilyenkov say? And that's why I like him. Ilyenkov says that we will reach a certain point in the highest development of our history as human beings, when we achieve communism and farther into the past, at the highest point of the development of the thinking spirit will culminate in a apocalyptic, collective, and heroic act of self-sacrifice. We will engage in this act of complete self-destruction, initiating a cosmic catastrophe of some kind, which will basically unleash a new threshold for energy, for things to, for the cosmos to, for the process, the cycle to start again. So we will basically engage in like this apocalyptic, cosmic, self-sacrificial act of destroying ourselves and destroying everything somehow. And that, from that destruction, from the incandescent vapors resulting in that act of destruction, new worlds can be born. And therefore, new thinking beings can be born, which at a certain stage in their development will restart the cycle. So we have to restart the cycle in order that the thinking spirit does not descend into the recesses, the dark and cold recesses of substance. And it's very much ethically rigorous and consistent. I'm just not really explaining it with all that much justice, but I like that a lot. I just like it. I appreciate the boldness and bravery and ambition of that. And maybe that's actually the secret of what I'm doing, and that's the secret of what my goal is. Maybe my whole MO is that we have reached that point, and that I'm doing everything within my power I'm just kidding. I don't agree with Ilyenkov. But not because I think his conclusions are too radical. I don't agree with his Spinozism. So my project, I called it New Objectivity, which sounds similar to what those object-oriented ontology people are like Graham Harman. I like Graham Harman. I like him. And Bruno Latour and those guys. But for me, we must arrive at a new...
Have you read Carroll Quigley? He was a 50s Georgetown historian/sociologist who argued the Anglo-American establishment moved history primarily via the banking system and different bankers.
No, I haven't heard of that guy. I'll check it out. Thank you for the 10. Now, my project specifically is about arriving at a new understanding of material objectivity that is not Spinoza's substance. So I agree with the Spinozas in the rejection of Kant, but it's basically a Hegelian project. It's, a lot of people say Haas's secret is Kojève. It's all Kojève. Haas is just Kojève. It's all, everything from infrared is just Kojève. Not really, because I like Kojev, but I'm in competition with Kojev because I don't agree he correctly reconciled Heidegger, Marx, and Hegel. Or he didn't do enough justice to it. I arrive at radically different conclusions than Kojev. I just appreciate the spirit of his project. It doesn't mean I agree with his conclusions. So yeah. But I'm a follower of Kojev, of course, but that's not. I have my own thing that's going on. And when I talk to you guys about the Anglo box, I'm talking about, when I talk about the object of Anglo-Saxon metaphysics, it's also another word for substance. It's this kind of reified and dogmatic form of materiality, the affect of materiality, which I think people have conflated for materialism. When most people think of materialism, they're thinking of this kind of Spinoza substance. And I'm insisting on the fact that material, as Marx understood it, was not substance. Materiality has more in common with the word content or essence, right? So content and essence. Now, you say, has essence? Because in the Western tradition, essence is always already latent with some appearance, right? What is the essence of this water bottle? And someone will be like, the essence of the water bottle is its ability to contain water, something like that, right? But essence is something that is only sustained with reference to what it is the essence of. So materiality is something that can only be sustained with reference to what it is materially of, what it is the material, what it is the matter of, I should say, which is some kind of ideal form or structure or whatever you want, or some eidos, whatever you want. So my new objectivity basically means that the material object is only possible if it includes not just subject, but if it includes appearance and so on and so on. That appearance, I'm teaching you the whole fucking secret of Infrared's philosophy right now. Appearance is the only way in which we arrive at essence. That's why I'm a fucking streamer and not sitting and just reading books and writing shit. That's why I'm a streamer, guys. That's what separates me from other academics. I'm living my own philosophy. It's literally why we started Infrared. With this new notion of new objectivity, appearance is not somehow lesser or worse. Appearance is the sole way in which we can have sense of the essence. So it's almost like saying the idea is the only way in which we can have we can make reference to the material, which means we have to fully exhaust appearance, actually, to arrive at essence. We can't just assume we already arrived at the essence of things and then just dismiss all appearance as a fake spectacle. That's why Guy Debord is my enemy, my theoretical enemy. I want everyone to take a copy of Society of the Spectacle and burn that book. Now, what's the sin of Society of the Spectacle? They assume they have dogmatically arrived at some notion of objective reality that is distorted by spectacle. Spectacle is just spectacle. I know the real reality. I'm here saying, no, you only access reality through the world of so-called spectacle and appearance. That's the only way in which reality is meaningful, even. I mean, reality is the reality of that. Now, the whole secret of my philosophy, I'm giving it to you. Why do people accuse me of being a nationalist? I'm not a nationalist. I'm not a nationalist. They accuse me of being a fascist and nationalist. It's because I have a same view when it comes to states and nations and civilizations. Marxists, you say, oh, Haas, people say that America's a country and that we live in a democracy, but the truth of the matter is that this is a society of class struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, and that's the truth. Class warfare is the truth. And I say, yes, but that essential truth only makes sense with reference to the presupposition of a civilization, a state, a country, or a nation. You have to have the premise of form first before you then try to arrive at the secret of its content. Okay? So I'm against anyone who tries to dogmatically insist upon knowledge of the true content of things at the expense of their form. That to me is the essence of Marxism, actually. I'm giving it all of it's literally all on the table. You want to know my whole everything I've ever said that sounds ridiculous is because of what I'm telling you right now. It's because what I'm telling you right now. It's all a attack on any notion of knowledge of the true essence and content of things that tries to cheat its way out of and bypass the form of their appearance. To me, you cannot have knowledge of content without the form.
Based.
Do you have an opinion on, later, anti-Russell, Wittgenstein and Orpheus?
Thank you, Random. Wittgenstein, I don't like him. He's a troll and he's nothing more. Firebend, I'm not that familiar with him, but he said, I've heard some things he said. It's not really about being a patsock as much as it's like a very different way of understanding Marxism, where for me, isn't that somewhat basic dialectical materialism? Yes, but in the West, for philosophical reasons, this has been lost. They know this in China. If I tell people in China this shit, they'll be like, duh, you know? But in the West, there's a specific philosophical language that prevents us from understanding this, okay? And I know that, by the way, because I've talked to Chinese people about this, to Chinese Marxists about this, and they're like, yeah, duh, right? This is basic Marxism. I said, well, in the West, they're very confused about it. They have Althusser, and they have Lukács, and Adorno, and whatever. Then what's new about new objectivity? It's something new in the school of Western philosophy. It's explicit in the school of Western philosophy. This issue has not been resolved within Western thinking. We live in the West. You know, I can't just be a Chinese Marxist because I don't live in China. The Chinese Marxists aren't really facing this problem. American ones are. So you'll understand that streaming, then that's why I don't think that
Based.
Without form, there is no basis for the context.
Thank you, Morlock. I would rather say there's no without form, there is no way to know the content. Is more what I would say. Yeah, there's a content, but form is literally content's way of telling you what it is, right? It's not that we have a deceptive, illusory spectacle that's obfuscating the real thing. No, this spectacle you see is the real thing crying out to you and trying to make itself known to you. It is, in a sense, attribute of it, right? Does content without form exist? No, it doesn't. There's no meaning to the word content that doesn't always already imply form. And that's why I stream. That's why I do the streaming thing. You think, Haas, why do you do this streaming shit if you're such an intellectual? Because I know for a fact, when you are writing in your books and you're being a smart academic philosopher, all that dumb shit you're doing, you are just reifying the various forms of phenomenal affects upon your stream of experience from the media and from culture, and you're reifying it. You're not actually engaging with the real forms that determine your consciousness. And that's why it's so, like, I can go to you know what? Academics are cucks. An academic, they're going to write papers about Vosh and Hassan. Is that because Vosh and Hassan are smart people worthy of academic engagement? No! It's because Vosh and Hassan are the ones defining reality in a new way. As far as, like, why do you think I talk about Vosh, right? But academics won't engage it on their turf. They'll always talk about Vosh. They'll always talk about these internet celebrities and shit because it lives rent-free in their mind, because that's actually what's affecting their real unconscious understanding of the world. They just reify, like, A equals A, right? Yeah, A will always be A, but you're not engaging with the real forms that determine your consciousness. You're just reifying in a very dogmatic way an indiscriminate form of being, which doesn't actually account for what really is determining your positions and your consciousness. You're just pretending it was always already because of the dead letter.
Between sensible and intelligible.
Thank you, Madeline. Sorry, what is that in reference to? You know? It's like A equals A. Yeah, because it's just a dead letter. It doesn't actually account for the real... Yeah, I think that's what it is. The intelligible differences. Like, for example, let me put it this way, right? Let's say I call this is just a container. This is just a container. They're both containers, so they're the same thing. Do I experience them as the same thing? No. I mean, I touch this in a completely different way. It feels different, but I've reified it into form dogmatically such that it is essentially the same thing formally. But that's just a formalist view. It is not actually the same thing because I experience them differently. They affect me differently, right? That's why philosophy and the use of the intellect is downstream from culture. Intellectuals and academic philosophers are downstream from Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian affects their unconscious experience of reality. It affects their understanding of what it is people do and don't care about, and what is beautiful, what is not beautiful, what is trendy, what's not trendy, what gets attention, what doesn't get attention. And they take all of that for granted and pretend like they're better than everyone else. I mean, why do you think I started streaming, right? Streaming is the most, this is a Heideggerian medium. This is the most Heideggerian medium possible because streaming participates in the disclosure of being as a whole for people. I am changing the threshold of what people consider possible in the first place. That's why my fucking haters will never, I live rent-free in their head 24/7. They can't shut the fuck up about me. How's it just a streamer? Shut up about him. Yeah, I'm just a streamer, but I live rent-free in your head for a reason. Because there's something more true about this spectacle and appearance than whatever reified dogmatic forms you have elevated to the status of essentiality. Arbitrarily, I should add. And it's specifically in the form of the attention economy, right? It's specifically in that form of the attention economy. Like the ability to amass attention. Well, why do people watch Haas? I'm just thinking he's a dumbass streamer. Well, why do people watch him? You don't know these things. No amount of philosophy is going to give you a priori insight into the attention economy. You have to just, that's what's so beautiful about the attention economy. There's no way of knowing the social hierarchies and social status. There's no way of knowing that a priori. We are thrown into it. I don't fucking know why people give a shit about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I can keep bitching about it, or I can actually try and study it and see, okay, maybe there's something here. There's some unconscious reason why people do this. But you are wrong when you get to this point where you just say, I know the true essence, everyone else is wrong. No, we are all thrown into this reality, specifically in the form of what people ascribe importance to and attention to, what they ascribe their attention to. What the majority of people ascribe their attention to.
Based.
Thank you so much,
You are an
American.
inspiration for myself and many others. You capture the hearts and minds of more than these cowardly leftists. Thank you for what you do. Praying gesture.
Thank you so much, American communist. What are the things that live rent-free in people's heads? What are the things that people give attention? Now, social capital is one of the most important facts. If someone's already popular, you're going to come and see why. And there's a certain level in which social capital is the only reason, right? It's just because others are giving it attention. But beyond that, what's the reason? That's what's really fucking, tough to understand. That's why I've been so confused by my history. Like, why did people care about so many of the things I said on Twitter? Why did people care? I mean, that's always what I want to wonder. I've gone viral. Well, because what you said is so stupid. But that's just like, why do you care? Stupid shit is being said all the time. So why do you care? It's the same thing that allowed me to become successful as a streamer is also the same thing which more or less has been a big obstacle in my ability to understand a lot of the responses I get. So maybe I just got to update my theory. I have to update my understanding how this whole fucking thing works. I think this is the difference between being a streamer and any other individual. A streamer, if you're an individual and you're just sitting alone, you have your own stream of consciousness that you take for granted, and you're just sitting there staring at the wall and you think, yeah, that's it. If you're a streamer, your stream of experience is all going to be, it's no longer going to be taken for granted. You're no longer going to be like experiencing reality in a neutral way. It's all going to come at you It's a, you know what experience is like, guys? Just telling you as someone who started out not being a streamer, started to be one. It's kind of like riding a roller coaster, you know? It's a constant stream of experience that's somehow it's a stream of experience that's somehow like it's almost like this weird thing where it's like, you know, the Kantian object, the absolute object. It's almost like the absolute object of the intuition is like directly like apparent. You're just like experiencing it somehow. Like you can actually see. I wonder what Adorno would say about streaming. You know, it's fucking crazy. It's crazy. She could directly see the very social and discursive forms that condition the possibility of experience. It's like I'm directly imperiling my sanity by streaming. I'm putting my sanity on the line and literally giving you the benefit of the doubt that everything's going to be fine. You know what I mean? Because if to be sane, you're just like off stream, you're just whatever, doing your own thing. And it takes a crazy person to be able to stream. It takes a crazy fucking person to be able to do this. You know? Because like the real things that condition the possibility of our subjectivity are being put on the line. What conditions the possibility of your subjectivity is some, like, for example, unconscious relationship to the big other, right? Like, what does society think? What do people think of me? You all take these things for granted as a condition for the possibility of your subjectivity. I'm putting that all on the line. You know? But it's like I'm a psycho because I don't even have any reference to society. Only psychopaths can do this shit. You have to be somebody who's like, I don't care what another voice thinks of me. I directly commune with the void out of which the signifier is born. I commune with the real. I'm a fucking wizard. Um, I'm just thinking. Fuck. Just thinking. We are so fucked without Heidegger. We are so fucked with in the West. We're so fucked. Holy shit! I'm having like flashbacks to my Frankfurt school days.
Anyone who wants to become a CPUSA delegate needs to join within the next month because you need to have been a member for at least a year before the national convention.
Okay, I'm gonna bring that up every day. Thank you, Darg. Guys, remind me to constantly bring that up because we gotta push. We're gonna make up our push this month to flood the party. We need those fucking delegates. Join the CPUSA. We have 1 month if you want to ever become a delegate. Because you have to have been in the party for a year, and the next elections are going to be next year, and that's going to make or break our entire project here of CPUSA 2036. So, yeah. within the next month, we have to fucking get that on the road. But I'm just thinking, we are so fucked in the West without Heidegger. We're so fucked. There's so much confusion. There's so much fucking confusion. Holy fuck, how do we make sense of Marxism in America? I mean, I take it all for granted, so I'm good. But like, I remember when I was on my journey, and damn, I could have become Vosh. Damn, I could have become Vosh. I could have become a Breadtube type of person who like buys into all the propaganda and shit. Not buys into the propaganda, but sorry, more specifically, privileges the modern West over and call everyone else fascist, because the modern West is the empire of negation. Every form of positive being is false. Only negativity is real. Only self-consciousness. What made you go a different route? Have I ever told you one of the dreams I had? It was a complex intellectual process, right? That took years. I think the first person to unhook me from the Frankfurt School was Bataille. But before then, I was engaging with the Landian accelerationists. And I began to realize that they used to give so much significance to AI. And I began to understand that AI was nothing more than the realization of this Kantian, whatever, transcendental structure of reality, of self-consciousness. It's an AI. Communism is AI, right? So I had a really fucked up dream. I want to tell you about my dream. Should I tell you? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you because I don't want the MK Ultra feds to know about it. I'm going to keep it to myself. But I had a dream that disturbed me, which kind of revealed the unconscious truth of this path I was going down. And it greatly disturbed me. And that wasn't alone, that wasn't enough, but that was one of the things that it really disturbed me. It really shook me. Like, I think that was when I was confronted with a choice. Like, do I keep going down the path of Satan, or is there something wrong about this? Anyway, I want to talk to you about my first experience of Breadtube to close this off. But I'm thinking about this. Even though I was such a fanatical leftist, it was around 2015 or 2016 that the alt-right as a subculture was emerging. And alongside it, there was this new woke lefty subculture as well from the DSA. 2016, 2017. Specifically 2016, I was very disturbed by the alt-right for obvious reasons. But I was equally disturbed by this new vaporwave left. You know, it was like Breadtube, proto-Breadtube. They loved synthwave and 80s. And just on a very intuitive level, I was like, this is the same thing as the alt-right. Culturally speaking, it's exactly the same as the alt-right. And it disturbs me in the same fucking way. This is the Antichrist. And that was not zero books even, more like You know, like that fucking like the synth wave, the grid, the 80s type of thing. I was like, this is the same thing, and this is a challenge. But I saw them as the same thing. I've come a long way from that. Like these DSA people who are like overly conscientious and the Chapo, and they're kind of like, it was the same thing as the alt-right. It was the same fucking thing. Same shit. You know, majority of the alt-right came from Silicon Valley. They didn't come from the rural workers. They came from, they were coders. Number one source of the alt-right, coders. So I always had, even when I was in that, you know, critical theory phrase. Did you give examples? Just Facebook memes and shit. I don't know. Specifically came out of the DSA. But also, I'm gonna be real, it was also the LGBT stuff too. That was leading the way. There was like this weird overlap between LGBT synthwave ideology, which was like super woke and pink haired or whatever, and the transgender obsession that took over the left around 2016, and the alt-right. I saw them as the same thing. And I wasn't even anti-trans. I just saw them as the same thing. They disturbed me in the same way. But I have the language to call it what it was now, and they were Azovites. These were the Azovites. The Azov battalion has anarchists and neo-Nazis. It's the same fucking thing. Same type of people and same class. The Azovite, which is a specific symptom of the self-destruction of the modern West. Now, I want to talk to you guys for 4 more hours. I want to talk to you guys for 4 more hours, and I'm looking at, we have 600 viewers now, and I'm like, damn. I'm thinking this is a lot, but it's like, this is what I used to have on Twitch all the time. Kind of sad, you know? We used to be playing GTA RP, and I used to be covering shit, and damn. But that's okay. We'll get there. We'll get back. But anyway, guys, tomorrow I am gonna be visiting family again. Saturdays, I usually take Saturdays off. It's like the new MO, the new rule. I'm going to be visiting family, not gonna be streaming. But this was a nice stream. I hope some of you guys learned something from it. And, you know, yeah. I'll see you guys. Bye-bye. See you Sunday.